Kuwait City at the end of the war. Marines and Special Forces secure the U.S. Embassy as President Bush dictates the terms of peace. Allies question Iraqi troops about reports of atrocities, and the people of Kuwait celebrate their freedom. This is the CBS Evening News. Dan Rather reporting tonight live from Kuwait City. Good evening. The guns of the 100 hours Gulf ground war fell silent today. President Bush says Iraq has agreed to talk about the terms of a ceasefire. All around in Kuwait City, a people caught between joy and grief. Saddam Hussein says he won the war. Defense Department correspondent David Martin begins our coverage.
And we're going to destroy every piece of Iraqi equipment we find in zone with engineers and demolitions.
First, the Allies cut off the Iraqi army, then they killed it. Now they're reducing it to scrap metal. Everything, from aircraft shelters to personnel carriers.
No Iraqis in the vehicle this time. Destroying the sights on the weapon system, unloading the weapon system. Make sure the vehicle's clear this time.
The Allied armies have settled into defensive positions, like a cat outside a mouse hole, one officer said, while what's left of the Iraqi army creeps home. But after 42 days of airstrikes, like this F-16 chasing a tank across the desert, and 4 days of high-speed maneuver on the ground, the Iraqis had precious little.
We torched probably a couple of hundred trucks in this general area. They were all escaping back toward the west, headed toward Baghdad, when we came up on them with a 2-brigade attack in the dark and fired them up.
Saddam had 42 divisions in the Kuwait theater. Not one of them is left.
These guys are defeated. Make no bones about it. They're defeated. There aren't any tanks rolling around out there.
Although Iraqi soldiers have surrendered in staggering numbers, 175,000 by British estimate, there are still some who either didn't get the word or are determined to fight on.
We are not relaxing our guard for 1 minute.
President Bush says the war is behind us, but with thousands of mines strewn across the desert, the soldiers know the danger is not.
Be careful. This is probably the most dangerous part of this operation.
The war ended so suddenly, the Defense Department is now scrambling to come up with a plan to bring the troops home. The Pentagon will try to bring those who have been there longest back first. But it took 6 months to get all the troops there, so people should not expect everyone home soon. The Army, for instance, expects it will take until sometime in May to bring about half its soldiers home. David Martin, CBS News, the Pentagon.
President Bush today announced Iraq has agreed to a key condition of the 48-hour ceasefire he declared last night, a meeting of top military officers to make final the end of the shooting war.
The Iraqi government has now agreed to designate military commanders to meet with coalition counterparts to arrange for the military aspects of this ceasefire.
But Iraq specifically failed today to agree to another of Mr. Bush's conditions, the immediate release of all prisoners. POWs, said the president, will be question one in the meeting of the military commanders.
The one that's foremost, or amongst foremost in my heart, is the question of our prisoners of war. And we expect a prompt repatriation of them, Kuwaiti detainees and others.
This Oval Office meeting with Kuwait's ambassador was otherwise intended as a gratitude mission from a newly free nation.
There isn't, I believe, a more precious gift that could be given to people than their freedom, and our hearts go also to the families of the victims that have lost their lives bravely in Operation Desert Storm.
Because Saddam is still in power, the administration will press the case for continued economic sanctions, at the very least to create leverage on Saddam for a quick and clean release of Allied prisoners. Wyatt Andrews, CBS News, the White House.
Here in Kuwait City, it was a day of jubilation and high drama. Arab coalition forces swept into the capital this morning to make the liberation official, setting off an all-day celebration by the Kuwaiti people.
Yes! Yes!
A few hours later, a dramatic moment as U.S. Marines and Special Forces seized back the embassy
America had been forced to abandon under siege last December. A giant helicopter hovered over the main embassy building, then dropped in the Marines and Special Forces, like the evacuation of Saigon, in reverse. Suddenly, the Marines have landed, and the situation is well in hand. Marine guards a block away from the embassy became the focus of the people's adulation.
Got to say, this is one of the more rewarding experiences in the time that I've been in, sir.
They showered them with candy and dates and flowers and kisses.
Why don't you come stay at my house?
I wish I could.
Well, I get a good meal.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
The people poured out their gratitude to George Bush and their hatred for Saddam Hussein.
What they done, the Iraqis here, Genghis Khan or Holako or even Hitler didn't do it in the history.
They burned posters and Iraqi money. From one Kuwaiti after another came accounts of abuse and atrocities by the Iraqis.
They cut off his tongue, his eyes pulled off, and finally they chop off his head in front of his family. I saw with the screwdriver the eyes comes out.
Now, is
The electricity.
this real? Is this something you saw yourself?
I saw with my own eyes.
One American who hid in Kuwait for 7 months told of atrocities.
There's no question that large numbers of people were taken, and it seems there's little question that large numbers of people were tortured. There's absolutely no question that they came to the country to destroy it.
In mid-afternoon, an eerie darkness descended on the city. Thunderclouds mixed with black smoke from the burning oil wells blotted out the light, but didn't stop the celebration. A tragic sidelight to the celebration, a young Kuwaiti critically injured when his motorcycle ran over an Iraqi mine. Kuwaiti resistance leaders brought out bodies of people killed in the last few days, including 15 Iraqi soldiers. Late today, the British ambassador arrived to officially reopen the British embassy. The U.S. ambassador is expected to be here tomorrow.
The next order desert-tired U.S. troops want to hear is the one to move out and to move to the planes that will take them home. Correspondent Eric Ingberg has a report on the longest wait of all.
The Americans who fought this amazingly swift, successful war punched in for work today as though it was just another day on the battlefield.
We did what we had to do, did what we were told to do, you know, and if it come down to it, we'll go back out and do it again.
The chores of victory on a desert littered with the carcasses of Saddam's gutted regiments kept the troops as busy as combat. And the sergeants, worried about enemy treachery, were still on their case.
If you guys don't know, at 0800, there's supposed to be a ceasefire. All right? We've accomplished our mission so far, but don't keep your heads down. Keep them up. Okay?
The good news blew across the front like a desert storm.
Is it true? Really? That's good. That's good. How do you feel about that? I feel great about it.
Send your comment. That's the extent of my comment. I want to go home.
Isn't peace wonderful?
This is great.
Too bad it couldn't have come sooner.
Many of them have lived in this inhospitable desert for 6 months. They have missed things at home.
I want to go back to Tennessee where I belong, back in the mountains.
Hike the Grand Canyon for one.
See my daughter, because I miss my daughter.
They have assumed from the start that they would win and that their cause was just. So they are sometimes embarrassed about showing emotion. Today, their feelings showed through.
You are some of the finest soldiers I've ever served with in 17 years in the Army. You're all a great bunch of gentlemen, and I'm very happy that we...
The old soldiers were talking today about burying the ghosts of Vietnam on this desert, of going home, winners at last. For the young ones, it was less complicated. They had been given a job, and they had done it. That was enough. Eric Engberg, CBS News, Saudi Arabia.
Coming up next on tonight's CBS Evening News from Kuwait City, a report in from Baghdad, where the Iraqi people have been told they won the war.
my 7 foot. Thank you very much.